Hey everybody, it's Lynn Hayes. Welcome back to my channel. You've probably wondered where I was. I didn't make any kind of announcement when I stopped posting videos, but I was just taking a break. I wasn't really sure if this platform fit me. So I made a deal with the universe and I said to myself that if I had 400 subscribers, that I would continue the channel. So I was at about 390 and I just sat at that level for a long time. I kind of forgot about it. Then all of a sudden I noticed people were subscribing and now I'm over 400. So I figure it's time to get back to work, back to this YouTube channel. So many of you know I've been an astrology teacher and consultant for quite a few years, 35 years. And I've had a blog for a very long time. So if you're not familiar with that, then you may want to visit the writings that I put on there, and I'll have the links in the description box. But I want to pick up the schedule that I had before. So every Monday I was posting about the astrology for that week, and then sort of in between if there was anything important. And there actually has been so much going on. And of course, right now, most of us are in self-imposed isolation. Some of us are in actual lockdown. And there's a lot to talk about in terms of the astrology of how all of this has come about. One problem with living in a world that's flexible, we're not really locked into a fate situation. If everything in our world was fated, we'd be able to make literal predictions about what was going to happen. And I know there's a lot of astrologers who like to think that that's possible. I have not really seen any evidence that they've been successful, and I've really looked. So our world is flexible. It's always changing. It's always evolving. We're always changing. We're always evolving. There's always choices in our personal lives. But then we're also in this macrocosm where things are happening around us over which we have no control. So we are in the sort of the beginnings of the second half of a passage of Neptune through its own sign of Pisces. And Neptune has to do with mysterious diseases. It has to do with spirituality and meditation and creativity and artistry and addiction. But it also is very tied to the idea of viruses and illnesses that sort of come out of nowhere in which we have no control over. So as astrologers, we've been watching this for quite a long time, and we really haven't had very many of those. There have been some flare-ups, but they've been able to be controlled. And this virus came about right when Saturn and Pluto collided. So just a little bit more history, and if you want more, there's lots of information on my blog, and I'll also post links to the most recent posts that I made about this. But Pluto, the planet of destruction and regeneration, is in the sign of Capricorn right now. Capricorn has to do with the structures on which we build our life. So Capricorn is all about banks and governments and businesses and corporations and money and finance and all of these things that help us to master the material world. So when the planet of destruction goes through the sign of Capricorn, which it started in 2008, and you might remember what happened then, there was a financial collapse. What's happening now is different. That was a financial collapse caused astrologically by the contraction of Pluto going into Capricorn. Before that, Pluto was in Sagittarius, where everything was expanding, everything was getting bigger. Now Pluto went into Capricorn, started the contraction. Then we had Saturn going into Capricorn last year, or I think it was December of 2018. And last summer, Saturn and Pluto came within a couple of degrees. That was really the beginning of this conjunction. And we started to see a bit of contraction. We started to see volatility in the stock market in the spring, March, April, May, when these two planets started to come together. But then we were sort of lulled into complacency. And then in December, Jupiter went into Capricorn. And once Jupiter went into Capricorn, then the belt started tightening. There was still, you know, expansion has its own momentum. And so there was still a lot of optimism in the stock market, but you were starting to see some signs that the veneer was starting to crack. And then January 10th, I want to say, when Saturn and Pluto conjoined in the sky, that coincides with the time that this virus really started to take off. It had already been an issue in China, of course, but it started to seep into the rest of the world in January and then in February and then in March, of course. And then just yesterday we had Jupiter lining up with Pluto. So really for the last year or so, there's been 3 to 5 planets in Capricorn. So our whole idea of what gives our life stability, what can we count on in this world, is all being challenged right now by the astrology. And we're in a big crisis in many different areas. Health is a crisis. The way that people eat and feed themselves has created monstrous health problems that are starting already before this virus had been starting to break health systems around the world. You know, they're starting to see children who have high blood pressure, and it was really an untenable situation. The climate crisis, of course, everybody has been shouting, you know, it's time to take some action. No action has been taken. I firmly believe that nature is always striving for balance. Anybody who reads my stuff will have heard that over and over. And when something, I see it in the personal lives of clients and in my own personal life, when we're out of balance and we have a planetary cycle that sets it off, something is going to happen to bring our lives back into balance. And the world is so out of balance right now. There's disconnection. People aren't outside. They're not talking to each other except online. And what we've seen since this virus crisis is we've seen people out in their neighborhoods. They've been walking together. They've been connecting in unusual ways. We've seen a huge improvement already in the ecology of the earth. Air pollution is way down in China. Less people flying means less use of fossil fuels and carbon. And since people aren't traveling, the over-tourism problem that many areas have had has really improved also. So it's a horrible situation for so many people, and I don't mean to minimize that at all or minimize that, but everything is rebalancing. I just feel like that's the most important thing that we need to know. So it's critical that we follow the instructions that we're given, that we pull back. There is going to be a tremendous effect on the economy, of course. There already has been so many people out of work, but our over-reliance on material things, and I myself am as guilty or more of this than anybody else. I have Venus in opposite Jupiter in Taurus, which means a love of fine things, and I'm very self-indulgent, but I'm really finding now that I don't need those things. I'm just needing the simplest of things. And sometimes it takes a big crisis to bring us to that point. So I hope that anybody watching this, I hope that you're all staying safe and sort of hunkered down in your house while we wait for this crisis to be over. The astrology suggests that well, let me explain that a little bit. Jupiter and Pluto are going to be within 3 degrees of each other for quite some time. And Jupiter has to do with what gives our life meaning. And so when Jupiter and Pluto, the planet of destruction, come together, there's a big reevaluation happening in how we feel about our lives, how we express our goals and our dreams. And this is all pretty much throughout the summer. So that's the underlying energetic aspect of what's happening. As far as the details of the virus, I can't really make predictions, but I would be surprised if we were out of this before the summer. The second phase of Jupiter-Pluto is in June, and the third phase is in November. That's going to tie into the election in the United States. I don't really want to talk about that now. There's a lot that I'll be saying over the coming months, but I just wanted to hop on here for a few minutes and just say hello. I'm back. I'm looking forward to connecting with you, and if you have questions or things that you need me to cover, please be sure to ask me in the comments. So thanks so much, and again, take care and be well.